For more than 50 years, Advocates for Basic Legal Equality, Inc., or ABLE, has been providing free legal assistance in civil matters to help people living in poverty in Northwest Ohio and beyond achieve self-reliance, equal justice, and economic opportunity. This is the story of their history, the impact the organization has had so far, and those working tirelessly in the pursuit of justice.
Support for In Pursuit of Justice is provided in part by Dana Incorporated and by the following. Also by viewers like you. Thank you.
We ask people to obey and respect the law in our democracy. In exchange for that, if someone has been wronged, we give them an opportunity to right that wrong through the legal process.
ABLE is a nonprofit law firm that provides legal assistance to people living in poverty.
ABLE has been an advocate for low-income people to try to right those wrongs and to maybe expand their rights.
We are representing someone and realize that there's a pattern here. This is not just happening to one person, it's happening to 3, 5, 10, and then we find out it's an actual policy that is affecting people.
Throughout the years, one thing has stayed the same. ABLE always looks for the underlying causes of poverty and works with clients to effect change through the legal process, whether in the courthouse or in other places of power.
We organize our legal work in practice groups that focus on agricultural worker and immigrant rights, housing and community economic development, healthcare and public benefits, meaningful and appropriate education, and we also have projects like the Medical Legal Partnership for Children and neighborhood-based projects that focus on certain communities. So all of our work impacts populations as well as substantive legal needs that people living in poverty have.
Founders and executives recall the early days of the firm and some of the landmark cases that shaped legal aid today.
ABLE was formed in 1969.
In 1969, the Civil Rights Act had just passed. The war on poverty was in the forefront. Even federal legislators saw the power of law as part of the war on poverty.
There was a Toledo Legal Aid Society in town. It handled individual cases. In the practice of law for poverty or for disadvantaged people, there's a theory called law reform, that rather than just handle individual cases, take a case and change society or change it for the better for low and moderate income individuals.
I give a lot of credit to Tom Wilging, who was a law professor at the University of Toledo College of Law, and Jerry Lackey, who was a civil rights and labor leader. And they basically came together and came up with the idea of forming a legal services program like ABLE. And I think one of the best decisions they ever made was when they hired Mike Frank.
They hired me to basically create the physical entity and run the organization.
He brought a different tone to tranquil Toledo. This was and still can be a very controversial issue in that there are fair housing regulations that talk about affirmative obligations to promote fair housing, which also means that you don't continue to build public housing in minority neighborhoods. You give people opportunity to live outside of those neighborhoods. But the city continued to select sites that were in the central city. And so we challenged many of those cases. The first case that Abel brought was Davis versus City of Toledo.
We filed a lawsuit because they were segregating the residents in neighborhoods that basically were minority and non-minority, and forced the Public Housing Authority to integrate its facilities.
It had a major impact on how the city looked at some of its actions and the racial impact that it was having. The city now knows that someone's looking over their shoulder. It's not like business as usual. We also were involved in cases like dealing with race discrimination in the police and the fire departments in the city of Toledo. They had a long track record of not hiring minority police and firefighters.
Out of 400 or so firefighters, they had 10 black firefighters, and they were all segregated in one fire station. Well, we brought a lawsuit.
And over a number of years, we were able to make some substantial inroads into integrating the Toledo police and fire departments.
We filed a lawsuit against Lucas County in which Judge Don Young declared the Lucas County Jail a place of cruel and unusual punishment. I mean, it was just amazing.
It's hard to describe some of these institutions, like the Lima State Hospital, because if you go in them, it's a combination of the stench, the unsanitary conditions, lack of ventilation, the noise, all of that.
One of the things the jail had was a hole in the ground. It was called the hole. And if you were bad, they put you in the hole. They had cells in the old Lucas County Jail that were meant for one, maybe two people. They sometimes had 4 people in the same cell. They had cots, and then they strung hammocks between the cots. It was so overcrowded. Judge Young heard the case and decided that the Lucas County Jail was a place of cruel and unusual punishment, and basically forced the county to build a new jail.
They won the case, and while the consent decree continues today, ABLE continues its pursuit for justice in matters of racial equality in the areas of education, housing, community development, healthcare and public benefits, and immigrant and agricultural worker rights. Through the years, ABLE's legal staff have dedicated their time to upholding the legal rights of those who are often ignored and unheard in the community.
ABLE impacts the community by representing low-income people and organizations and promoting systemic change that promotes racial justice and opportunities for families and individuals living in poverty.
We do our best using the law as a tool to advance the rights of our client communities, fix the wrongs that these systems have created in an effort to restore power in our clients' hands.
What we see every day is not just people who are in crisis, but we see resilience. We see people who have been knocked down time and time again. They live in neighborhoods that were affected by redlining and have never recovered. They've had different educational opportunities than many of us have had because of those things. And our staff works with them and believes in them and helps them see that they can achieve justice. That in turn helps restore faith in the system, that it can work if people have the legal help that they need.
Abel filed a number of farm worker cases, protecting farm workers in their living conditions and in their working conditions throughout Northwest Ohio.
We had this big case against Vlasic. Those are the people who make the pickles. And we were alleging that they hadn't been paying our clients fairly. And they were contending that that had nothing to do with them, that was more of the growers. There were all these counsel from Manhattan and Detroit and Philadelphia, and then there was me, Patty Hernandez from Toledo, representing the clients. Vlasic's contention throughout the case was that they really had no involvement in this dispute, that it was really between our clients and the grower. The line of questioning was related to my client not really knowing who was involved. And so the attorney was asking my client, okay, so you didn't even get a name. You have no way of knowing who was there. You don't know that that was anyone from Vlasic. And I remember my client just kind of swelling up and saying, well, I didn't get a name, but the guy was wearing a Vlasic hat, and he had a Vlasic jacket, and he was using a Vlasic clipboard. I've always said we have the best clients, we have the best cases, and that one was no different. We ended up getting a really nice settlement.
In 1994, the first case that I got was the Almendares case. Miss Almendares had been waiting at the welfare department for days and hours because there was no translations to find out about where her SNAP or food stamp benefits at the time were. Because the demographics have changed so much that now you have Arabic speakers that don't speak English, you have Spanish speakers that don't speak English. And now we're getting another group of Afghanistan refugees, and we might be getting Ukrainian refugees in here. Transparency and accessibility, something that you and I would take for granted, but this country and our communities is made up of a lot of people, and the systems are for everybody. We file civil rights complaints against public transportation systems here, same issue. Leaving people because, or not even answering because they could not answer the questions in different languages. Sometimes it's from the most unexpected places. Like family law intake came in that she had been trying under domestic violence, she had been trying to get a divorce and had called 911. 911 did not have access translation systems. The abuser basically was following her with a knife. This is the intake that we got, and had to run into the police station to save herself because the people in 911 kept hanging up on her. Systems that are normal for English speakers, it has to be usable to everybody, regardless of race, color, creed, language, doesn't matter, gender, doesn't matter.
In the area of immigrant rights, in 2018, ABLE filed 2 class action lawsuits on behalf of some client groups, the Community Refugee Immigration Services Organization and Intercommunity Justice and Peace Center, challenging Ohio Bureau of Motor Vehicles policies that denied driver's licenses to refugees and otherwise eligible minor children. The court found that the BMV policy of not allowing undocumented parents to co-sign their minor children's driver's license applications violated the Equal Protection Clause, and that the BMV policy to not allow refugees to use I-94 documents that were more than 2 years old as proof of lawful status violated the Supremacy Clause.
Thousands of community members were impacted, right? Because U.S. citizens whose parents are undocumented, refugees. This is a real document that they are able to get now through the BMV, a driver's license or a state identification card, specifically because of this successful federal litigation.
Through a combination of litigation and policy advocacy, ABLE elevates the voices of the community by working alongside clients and groups to fight for justice in individual cases and community issues.
ABLE is very involved in many community efforts in an effort to make a broader impact on the community as a whole.
There's so much power in advocacy, and there's so much power in listening to the members of the community.
I didn't realize about my status till like I was around 15 to 16 when I asked my mother for my birth certificate so I could get my driver's permit. And that's what my mother had told me.
In 2017, we first met Edgar at a Mexican mobile consulate, and he approached us looking for information about immigration services.
A real close friend of mine that I consider my brother, I finally opened up to him about it, and he was the one that was like looking to see where I could pretty much get help from. I guess they had like a seminar or something like that over here at the building, and I came up here and I signed my name, and I was just trying to figure out like, you know, who could help me. There was like a whole bunch of people lined up, you know, with different categories, I guess, on where you would fall at. Then it just so happened, Eugenio from ABLE was actually there. He was like, well, what's going on? I explained to him. So we went over there and talked, and we scheduled a meeting to meet that following week.
So when we met Edgar, we found out that he had consulted with another attorney, and that attorney was going to charge him $7,000. We explained the services we provide at ABLE and that we were able to assist him with his immigration services for free.
Ever since then, my life has like changed dramatically, like a lot, and I'm really happy. I don't have to live in fear no more. I'm able to actually work, you know, real decent jobs that pay good money instead of working, you know, the basic construction jobs, roofing, remodeling houses, getting paid $100 a day, working from before the sun came up to sundown.
Edgar's particular issue is one of many that we encounter in the office very often. We were able to help him with his immigration matter.
They changed my life and my kids' lives, to be honest with you. I'm really happy, and I'm excited that I'm actually doing this, and I only got like one more step to do, and that's just to get my citizenship, which ABLE is also helping me with that as well.
I had to utilize the services myself for my son. I was struggling to get his voice heard as a student on the spectrum of autism in our school district, and I was feeling like I didn't have support. So I reached out to ABLE, and they were able to help me to come in and not only get a successful IEP plan, but also make sure his voice was heard in that classroom and in the school district. And as I got to learn more about what ABLE offers for services for our community, I knew it was a place for me to become an advocate and stand with them to make sure people's voices get heard. They hear that person, they see that person, not just as a client, but as a human first.
I'm an advocate in the Housing and Economic Development Practice Group at ABLE, here at ABLE, and I'm assigned specifically to the Junction neighborhood. My role is quite simply, to hear the needs of the community members, hear the needs of homeowners, renters, citizens in the community, and connect them to the tools necessary to be successful. One of my most significant and memorable requests was from the Junction neighborhood for the city or someone, law enforcement, whoever, to stop the congregation of people outside of a local corner store. I didn't even realize how much that would take. It took arguing in front of city council, it took testifying in front of city council, it took having conversations with people, it took drafting documents, and it took holding the store owner accountable, and it took holding the city of Toledo accountable. It took a lot of work, and it let me know that there's so much power in advocacy, and there's so much power in listening to the members of the community.
Despite funding cuts, ABLE remains effective due to the resilience and resourcefulness of their staff and clients.
One thing I really love about my work that I feel really passionate about is how resilient our clients are.
The American dream that's been sold to folks, it doesn't look the same for everyone.
That's why they come to us, right? They're facing a number of barriers. They're having some difficulty and they just need some help.
These cases were important, not just for the individuals affected, but for the community, because the community now saw that they had a way to challenge injustices in the community, that ABLE was going to be their partner.
Whether it's a class action or a big policy change that makes a difference for thousands and thousands of people, they're making a difference every single day.
We're a very resilient organization. And I think we learned this from our clients.
Our clients face discrimination and marginalization and barriers every day. They're creative, they're resilient, they're bold. Some of the best ideas for how to solve problems and what our communities should look like come from our clients. And I think that we're better advocates by learning from them, and it allows me to be more resilient in my own life.
Over the years, we've had different things come up, and a lot of times our funding will go up, our funding will go down, but our commitment has never wavered.
Despite going sometimes years with no or very little increases in pay, our staff continues to provide excellent, professional, and enthusiastic representation of our clients.
With a successful history and a thriving team of ambitious professionals in legal aid, ABLE looks forward to another 50-plus years of making a difference for people in need.
I think the future of ABLE is very bright.
It's very exciting looking to the future because I see a bridge from the past with new passion, new skill, and reaching into the future, making even more of a difference in our community.
The future of ABLE is the new young attorneys that are very, very smart, very tech savvy. And to some extent, I think they're looking for what is the guiding light? How do I get there? How do I make the change in systemic and trying to address positive issues in society?
They are creative, brilliant advocates who will work endlessly to serve their clients and advance the rights of our client communities. And I have faith in our legal system. I have to, as a lawyer, that the law is one important tool in order to advance equal justice in this country.
The legacy of Abel's work in leading law reform, in making systemic change in communities on behalf of people living in poverty is long held and one that I'm proud to be a part of. I look forward to seeing what creative, bold strategies the next generation of attorneys will bring to this advocacy to be able to effectuate change.
I have seen attorneys, the new attorneys, they're here to change the world.
My clients, my coworkers, and my faith in our legal system give me hope. I am reminded every day working with my clients how fortunate I am. I learn so much from them. I am reminded that most people who walk this planet are good, wholesome, generous individuals. When I come to the office and work with my clients, I am reminded of that important message, and that gives me passion and it motivates me to work hard every day.
Everyone from the attorneys and advocates to administrative assistants, intake professionals, and people working in grants administration, finance, development, human resources, and communications are a vital part of achieving Abel's mission, working as a team in the pursuit of justice.